All right, 1 second here. All right, 1 second here. All right, so everyone, this is Q&A. Again, want to welcome everyone. This Q&A. Do apologize for last week. Whatever, had some internet issues. Hopefully we should be good. Hopefully we should be good to go. Again, want to welcome everyone. This Q&A. Basically, I want to finish up what I really spoke about there, even though I got cut off. So I have a few questions to deal with. One is non-Jews who choose to teach other non-Jews. Jewish law applies to them, right? So someone had asked why there are non-Jews out there, trying to tell other non-Jews what they should keep. Now, very interesting. We mentioned that Torah says, book of Leviticus chapter 19, I'll get there one day, I don't know when, get there one day, that the book of Leviticus chapter 19 tells us that there's a command for Jews to rebuke amisecho, their people. Right? That in the end of the verse says that you should not bear the sin. Right? So, like many mitzvahs in the Torah does not tell me what to do. Sorry, let's say better. Torah does not explain what the parameters are. Right? In other words, someone wanted to tell me once, listen, Jew does something wrong, got to rebuke him. Obligation to rebuke. Right? What's the issue? So some will say we don't know how to rebuke. Where generation doesn't know how to rebuke, even previous generation. But if I try and rebuke them, or someone tries to rebuke them, they won't be able to. Maybe they'll hate Judaism more. Right? So people use that as an excuse to say, I don't have to rebuke. Now the Gemara says in arent, the Gemara says that there's an obligation to rebuke even if that person's going to hit you. Even if they're going to slug you. You got an obligation to rebuke. Right? So these laws, let's just make very clear, these laws are very complex. People are going to say, come on, it says rebuke. Right? Someone to tell me, very good, it says rebuke. And what if you don't know how to rebuke? What if you rebuke somebody and they get embarrassed? You bear the sin. You for sure will bear the sin. So how can we say, at all times I got a mitzvah to rebuke? Right? That doesn't apply. There are many times you will be obligated to rebuke. As we said, this is complex. You can't just say, well, we don't know how to rebuke, so you throw it out. You don't rebuke it. Not true. But at the same time, we could look at it at face value and say, see, anytime someone does something wrong among your people, Jewish people, you got to rebuke. But if you're going to make it worse, it says don't bear the sin in the same verse. You're obligated to rebuke, don't bear the sin. Very good. So if you end up embarrassing them, did you fulfill the obligation of rebuking? No. If you made them feel bad, even if you said it in a very nice way, doesn't matter. Right? But there are times you have to rebuke. We don't just say, oh, can't rebuke because no one knows what they're doing. So no rebuke today. That doesn't apply. Right? Sometimes we will say that. But you have to know where, when. It's complex. Now, what about a non-Jew? I've gotten this question before. Can non-Jews rebuke Jews? I don't think non-Jews should be rebuking Jews about Torah. Telling them, you're doing this wrong, that wrong. Let's say they're right. Let's say they're right. Right? Let's say a Jew rips a non-Jew off, which is forbidden. Totally forbidden. Now, there's no mitzvah for a non-Jew to rebuke anybody. Not even a non-Jew to keep their mitzvah. All the more so a Jew. We mentioned this many times. People say, hey, Jewish people, light into the nations. We have an obligation to teach the non-Jews. How are they going to learn about the Noahide laws? What do all these people worship cows? And show a little fat guy, Mr. Buddha himself, is it my obligation to teach him the Noahide laws? I should be out there pounding the pavement, putting up signs all over churches and who knows what. Right? There are 13 million Jews who don't know anything about Judaism. Nothing. They barely know how to read Hebrew, if that. I should be worried about non-Jews that worship cows, that they should keep the Noahide laws. Don't we say everybody looks out for their own? Everybody looks out for their own. Right? You're going to say, but it's not fair. See, it's a double standard all the time. You're going to say, but you're a light into nations. Very good, we are. That's true. Very, very true. Okay. And? Who says it goes that far? I have to be looking for non-Jews to educate in the Noahide laws. Says, but you made a video, you put out things, you tell people what you do, fine, it's not proselytization. If people want information, they get information. As we always say, I'm not here to convince anyone to convert one way or another. They want to, they meet the criteria, good. They don't, or they still want to eat shrimp, as someone told me, they can say no, not a problem. Right, but they have to know where they fit, what path. Even Jews coming back to Judaism, they need to learn. Right? So the question stands, which I never answered yet, is why do non-Jews try and teach other non-Jews what applies and what not? Right? Now, these are questions I don't normally answer. Yeah. Why does one do this or not do this? Right? You want my spin on it? Right? You want my spin? I'll tell you. There are a lot of people out there, believe they have the truth. Now, there are plenty of people out there who don't have the truth. So now, when you look at Noahides in general, right? Speak about this for a second. When you look at Noahides in general, there are certain issues. There are certain issues that they come in contact with. One of them is not so much ritual. Right? Not so much ritual. And you got, Jewish holidays. Can't necessarily participate or minimally. Certainly not like a Jew. Otherwise, they're over Torah prohibition of making up a new religion. It's what we call chidushei das. Can't make up a new religion. Right? So all these religions that are false can't make up a new religion. Not to mention that they're false. So you have a lot of different levels among Noahides. Some want to do a lot more. Some are happy with what they're doing. Let's make very clear, we've said many times, you don't straddle both worlds. You want to stay a non-Jew and not convert, do what you're allowed to do. Don't go beyond. Because if you go beyond, you're over Torah prohibition of making up a new religion. And Noahide's not a religion, by the way. Judaism is really not a religion either. So non-Jews have an obligation to keep whatever the Noahide laws tell them to keep. Right? There are 60, 70 Noahide laws altogether, 7 just an umbrella. But you see, there are Noahides out there called super Noahides. Certainly think they know a lot more than they do, that's for sure. But even so, they think they're right, even though they got no backing by anybody. Right? They think they're right. They think they should be keeping Shabbos and other things. Right? Similar to Jew, not exactly, but they want to do all these things, which is forbidden. So they want to get their message out there. So what do? They chastise other non-Jews. Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? As some tell me, they want to get together with another Noahide. And the problem is they don't drive on Shabbos. There's a problem in and of itself. There are different levels here. Different levels amongst what Noahides do. Not universal. I mean, I did give a year's worth of classes. What applies in idolatry and setting up law courts and kashrus and Shabbos and right and all these things. We gave guidelines. We certainly gave guidelines. Now, if they want to tap into more according to the guidelines, very good. If they're according to the guidelines. If they're not according to the guidelines, then what will we say? You can't do it. You're not allowed to do it. Now, in order for some people to say, what? How come you're not doing this? How come you're not doing that? You should be doing this. Right? They want to justify what they do like everybody else. So they'll tell other Noahides, yeah, this is what you got to do. This is what your obligation is. So again, if there's no mitzvah for a Jew to chastise a non-Jew and help them keep their mitzvahs, how is it that non-Jews should do it? Is there a mitzvah among non-Jews to rebuke when someone does something wrong? Or is that only for Jews? So really, it's only for Jews. Not something universal, per se. So we're not universal, way God looks at it. So if there's no mitzvah for Jews to educate Noahides, or rebuke them, there's no mitzvah for non-Jews either. There won't be any mitzvah. Now, someone asks, so why are there some non-Jews doing that? Good question. So I think they're doing it, my opinion, for what it's worth, because they have an inferiority complex. They want to show what they're doing is right. Right? And these other Noahides are wrong. Someone will compare it to say, don't we knock down and we knock out the reform movement, conservative movement? Because they basically don't work. They deny God. 60, 70% into marriage. Because, hey, but we want to show we're right. Not even a question of showing we're right. Kaufmans Law is that you have to be able to pass it down to the next generation. So I don't care what your philosophical outlook is. If you want to tell me the Torah tells me that I'm allowed to pick and choose whatever mitzvahs I want to do, some more, some less, this, that, and you can actually pass it down relatively well to the next generation, then what would I tell you? I said, okay, we'll have a discussion. Right? We'll have a discussion. Won't be a long discussion. Right? will not have a long discussion. Someone asked, there's no mitzvah non-Jews to rebuke non-Jews. Who says there is? Who in the world says there is? If there's no mitzvah for Jews to rebuke non-Jews, who says there's a mitzvah for non-Jews to rebuke non-Jews? I would say, though, maybe it's a moral imperative. Maybe. See non-Jew doing something wrong, right? About to go into a church. You have a whole discussion, trying to convince them not to be an idolater. So I'll tell you what's misleading. And this, my Rebbe wrote a long response. Very, very long response here. He asked the question, is there a mitzvah for Jews to rebuke non-Jews? He said, it doesn't say anywhere. Doesn't say anywhere in oral law, early commentaries, later commentaries. Nobody says. But someone has hounded me and dogged me for a while, saying, you're the light into nations, so that's your obligation. I don't know, by the end of days, non-Jews are going to come to Jews and say, I want to learn Torah. Not the other way around. We're not hunting them out. We don't want them to be idolaters. It's not my mitzvah to try and be makar of them, to draw them close. You tell me, what about Abraham? Oh, good question. What about what Abraham did? He and Sarah brought absolute monotheism to the world. Taught the world. Everyone was busy with idolatry. Everyone had their pocket God. Here's Bob. Don't leave home without him. Everybody had their pocket God. No one said what Abraham did was wrong. But God saw from that he's a leader, and he was searching, and he came to understanding who God is and what God wants. Whether at the age of 3, the age of 40, recognize there's a God-driven world, there's a world led by design. It's made by design. Right? So someone uses the argument, it's a bad argument. It's a bad argument. We're the chosen people because we chose God, God chose us. Okay. So even though we're chosen, and God said you should be a light into nations by keeping Torah mitzvahs, by doing what we need to do, very good. If we're going to be a light into nations, then non-Jews are going to be attracted to us to want to keep whatever they have to keep without going through conversion. Not that we're searching them for, in every bar and every corner, trying to convince them to keep their mitzvahs. So someone's got to say, but how's non-Jew going to learn? How are they going to come to Torah mitzvahs? Whatever they have to keep. What's the answer? The Gemara says, if you want to go on the right path, God will help you. God will help you, put someone in your path to help you. You want to go in the wrong direction, God will not stop you. So I had someone tell me, what are all the Hindus in India? They're all going to, it's idolatry. They're all going to get wiped off the face of the map. And what about all the Buddhists and everybody else? They were really talking about Indians. Okay. To get all these Indians going to wiped off the face of the map. Literally wiped off the face of the map. God hates idolatry. No question about it. Right? Someone says it's tragic. You're right. It's tragic. But guess what? I get contacted by a lot of people in India who want the truth. People can find it if they want. God gave everyone a brain, breathed in the spirit of life, gives us the ability to make decisions. So how can people make a decision to worship cows? I don't know. Good question. How can they, do other things? You could ask them how they get caught up in it. But I have to sit there and dig out non-Jews to find them so I can teach them the Noahide Laws. If they want it, bad enough, God will help. If they don't want it, it's their choice. It's their choice. Is it sad? Is it sad that they're all going to get wiped out? Sure. Does God want them to repent? Sure. But everyone makes a choice. Everybody makes a choice. The question, okay, that's part of the question. Right? That's part of the question. It doesn't, why would they do it? Why would they rebuke other non-Jews? Because they want them to be like them. They want them to do more. They think they're shirking their responsibility. They're not keeping what they need to keep. So they're out there So they're out there, some of them. I mean, I think they're a bunch of wackos, most of them. But some of them are out there trying to convince non-Jews to do more, to go outside the boundaries and the parameters of what they should do. Now, second part of that question is, what's the consequences for doing such a thing? So I'm going to compare it. Maybe it's not a good comparison, but I'm going to compare it to, let's say, Reformed conservative rabbis and that whole movement. Right? What's the comparison? The comparison is they deny God. A lot of them don't even believe in God. They flaunt what the Torah says. They say, come on, we don't understand this. Doesn't make sense. We're going to get rid of it. What? We're going to push away the mother bird and take the eggs? That's cruel. We're not going to do that. Mixing wool and linen? That's archaic. Doesn't even make sense. The kosher laws, no problem with trichinosis. Like, that's the reason. I get it. People didn't heat up things so well. You get tapeworms, this, that. That's nothing to do with kashrut. Right? Someone tried to tell me that. They're like, I was in a kosher restaurant. Someone says, there's no problem with trichinosis today. Like, so why bother keep kosher? Right? So I said, well, you're eating a bagel, right? Any trichinosis in a bagel? They're like, yeah, whatever, pass the salt. End of discussion. Yeah, a lot of things don't make sense. 80% of the Torah probably doesn't make sense. Still have to try and understand it, right? To the best of our ability, no question. But at the end of the day, what would I say? So what are these Reform and conservative rabbis don't know very much. Even back in the 60s, a lot of these conservative rabbis more traditional. So I asked the great rabbi, I said, do they have would we call somebody like that a Tinok Shanishba? Someone like grew up, in Idaho as a potato farm, right? No offense, anyone who's a potato farmer grew up in Idaho. Yeah, grow up knowing nothing. What level of knowledge did they have? Because a lot of the rabbis, when they started the conservative movement, were Orthodox. So he said, I'll tell you a story. Someone was the vice chancellor of the head of the conservative movement many, many years ago. I don't know, 60, 70. The vice chancellor. And he said he used to come to a synagogue and pray there. Right? Sometimes he would come. So, I don't know, he lived nearby, whatever, was visiting, whatever it was. So he told me, this rabbi told me, he said, listen, this guy asked questions. My people, my Daf Yomi could have answered. Now, what's Daf Yomi? Daf Yomi instituted about, 1920s, that if you learn 2 pages of Talmud every day, you finish the entire Talmud in 7.5 years. So every day, people are learning the same daf, right? The same 2 pages. So in a lot of synagogues all over the world, someone gives a class in this every day. Right? So he says the people listening to my class on Daf Yomi, they could have answered him. Now, what was he saying? You're not saying these people aren't so bright. He wasn't saying that. But a lot of people work. They don't have time to learn. This is the learning. Right? They don't have, world-class knowledge here by any stretch. So he said this guy was asking questions these people could have answered. So what does that tell you? You don't have very much knowledge. Now, even if you don't have very much knowledge, but you were trying to convince people to go astray. You're trying to convince people to go astray. The Reform movement, they started by what? Their whole goal was to uproot Torah. That was their goal. Their goal was to uproot Torah. Right? That was their goal. Conservative movement, they were stronger. They had Orthodox rabbis. They just diluted it. Their goal was not to uproot Torah. Okay. But at the end of the day, what are they giving over to the congregants? Heresy. A lot of them don't believe God gave the Torah to Moses. I think there were 4 authors in a redactor, documentary hypothesis. A lot of them think it's okay to be gay. Think it's okay to do all kinds of things against the Torah. Okay? Now, when you institute these type of things, and you're the leader there, so to speak, what are you doing? What's the prohibition besides being heretical? You're Ask the Rabbi. You are causing other people to go astray. Right? You're causing other people to go astray. That's pretty bad. Right? That is pretty bad. So what do I have? You have people out there, maybe well-intentioned, give a little bit of credit, maybe well-intentioned. Right? At the end of the day, you cause someone to go astray. It's a severe punishment. Severe punishment. Now, that being said, someone over here, the question is, okay, non-Jews trying to teach other non-Jews, right? Trying to rebuke other non-Jews, right? There's an issue, right? What's the issue? They're going to be punished. They're causing other people to go astray. It's as if to say they're making up a new religion. That's a severe prohibition. Even if it's not making up a new religion, you're causing people to go against what God says. Now that's pretty bad. In other words, you are convincing other people to be heretical. That's a severe prohibition. I don't think anyone disagrees. It's a severe prohibition. So if these quote-unquote super Noahides or whatever, they give a rebuke to other Noahides saying you can keep more, you should do more, but the reality is not true. It can only go according to the parameters that God set down by the Noahide laws, then you're causing people to go astray. You're essentially making up a new religion. And that's the Rambam others say you're not allowed to do. So even if someone wants to say that Islam's the closest thing to being a Noahide because they believe in one God, and that's pretty much what we hold. We don't hold idolatry. Certainly according to most rabbinic authorities, not a question. What's the problem with Islam? Even if it's very close to Noahide laws, let's say. So what? It's a made-up religion. It's a false religion. So if it's a false religion, what's the penalty? Death penalty, right? Should be death penalty. You can't go against Moses himself. Can't go against what God says. Making up a new religion, pretty severe. Right? So the question is, okay, so what's the punishment? You're making up a new religion. Being a Noahide is not a religion. It's following what God said. That he passed down to Adam, and Adam passed it eventually down to Noah, the Noahide laws. And you keep what it says. You don't go outside the boundary. So what are they liable for? What next part of the question? What are they liable for? You know what they're liable for? They're causing other people to go astray. They think they're doing the right thing. Let's say they're doing it for the sake of heaven. Very good. And even if they're doing it for the sake of heaven, they're causing other people to make up a new religion. So that's no different than what a Reform and conservative rabbi does. Or anyone else that tries to get other people to go astray. It's the same thing. Right? It's no different. So I would compare it and say it's the same thing. Right? Now, there's one other part of the question. What other part of the question? The other part of the question is, we're talking about rebuke. Now, if you see a non-Jew committing idolatry, can you rebuke them? You could as a non-Jew. Are you obliged? Obligated? No. So maybe I'll say it's a moral imperative. It's a moral imperative if he's going to hate you, even if he might slug you. Yeah? As a moral imperative, you can tell them, listen, it goes against what God says. You could do that. I'm not saying you can't. Right? I mean, I said you can't. I did say you can't. Right? So I'm saying in theory as the moral imperative. A moral imperative means if I want to do it, fine. If I don't want to do it, I don't have to. It's not obligatory. Certainly not obligatory. We said before, if a Jew has no obligation to rebuke a non-Jew, certainly the other way around as well. Right? A non-Jew to a non-Jew. No mitzvah at all. Right? But what's the third part of the question here? Right? So let's just repeat. The fact is, the moral imperative, maybe they should. Maybe. Obligatory? No. Now, there's a third part of the question. And that is, if non-Jews are not even considered Adam, right? Get a little bit controversial here, right? If non-Jews aren't considered if they're not considered Adam, not considered human, yeah, so how can they do it? Because the Gemara says we're going to need clarification here. Right? Third part of the question is, not considered human. Let's say better. They're not considered Adam. How could they do it? Right? So, it's a very interesting thing. Right? If you look at Saras in general, right, the person God for speaking Lashon Hara against someone else. What does the Torah say about it? And in Leviticus chapter 13, verses 1 and 2, it says if a person, right, has this have skin of his flesh, etc. Right? Talking about Saras. What does the Torah say? The Torah says Adam. Says if a person will have it. So very good. So the Gemara says in a few different places, you can look it up, Yom 61a, Baba Mitzvah 114b, Krisu 6b. What does it say over there? Right? It says, what's the word Adam over here? Right? Adam means what? A human. Now, Adam is singular. Adam is singular, there's no plural. Right? If you would have said the word man, the word ish, there's a plural, anashim. Anashim means man, people. Right? So the Gemara is over there saying, you are called Adam. Nations of the world are not called Adam. Something the Messianics, Christians, everyone else, going to rip us to shreds. Going to rip us to shreds and say, see, look what the Gemara says. Look what these racist rabbis say. They're not even human. Non-Jews aren't even considered human. Yeah, what's going on? Obviously, you have to see what it means in context. So what does it mean? Simple explanation. What does the word Adam mean? Where is it appropriate to speak about Adam? Only about Jews. Because what are we talking about over here? We're talking about Saras, right? I loosely translated as leprosy. That's not what it was. But it was a spiritual manifestation, a physical manifestation of a spiritual disease. Spiritual disease speaking Lashon Hara. Person spoke Lashon Hara way back when. This is what happened. Right? Skin of your flesh. You had all kinds of problems. You had all these spots and different things. So the word Adam is not, we don't care about non-Jews. We think they're subhuman. And that Adam only refers to Jews, so we're better? No. Why is Adam only referred to Jews? Right? You have to see what the connotation of the word is. So the statement's not, it's certainly not that only Jews are considered human. Obviously, non-Jews are human. Right? That's pashut. That's very simple. We're not going to say, oh, we're human, they're subhuman. That can't be the meaning. I mean, anti-Semites, and whoever's going to look at these Gemaras are going to say, see, we think they're subhuman. That's not what it means. Now, when the Hebrew language uses words, Hebrew language uses specific words for specific things. Yeah, words are very precise. Even if they're different connotations of something that's similar, i.e. a synonym. Why does the word Adam fit Jews? Adam means man, right? Means mankind, let's say. But Jews are one single entity. No dichotomy. We're all in this together. Meaning, Kol Yisrael Arabim said was that all Jews are intertwined. Jew does something somewhere in France, there can be repercussions in America and other places. All one unit. So therefore, Adam, who's it referring to? Jews. Because it's the only term for humanity that's no plural. And the Jewish people are singular people. So therefore, it's talking about Jews, not non-Jews. Right? So now you look at Taras. Why does it say Adam is going to get it? Because when a person speaks Lashon Hara, right? Someone who's a mitzvah, what is a mitzvah? What is the notricon? What is the acronym? The acronym for a mitzvah is Motzi Shemra. Right? One who speaks evil. One gives someone an evil name. Right? I spoke about this in the book of Leviticus chapter 13. Go back. A lot of videos over there. If you're on Orthodox conversion to Judaism on YouTube. So someone who speaks Lashon Hara, someone who speaks badly against someone else, what does it do? The divisiveness attacks, destroys the singularity of the Jewish people. Dangers the status of us as a unit. Right? It's the reason the Gemara says why was the temple destroyed? Second temple destroyed. Lashon Hara. Unlawful hatred. So Jews are called Adam because we're one unit. And nothing to do with, oh, we're much better, they're subservient, they're lower than human, they're subhuman. Right? So not at all. Right? Not at all. That's one. Right? So that was the third question. How can non-Jews do this? How can they rebuke one another or rebuke Jews or whatever the case is? They're going to rebuke non-Jews for not keeping the Noahide laws properly. So the question is, they're not even called human. They're not considered Adam yet. There's a reason. That's just one reason, one potential reason why they're not considered Adam. Not that they're subhuman. Right? The context over here, the person's asking, is if we look at them as being subhuman, then who do they have the right to? They don't have a right to do anything. They don't have a right to rebuke anybody, Jew, non-Jew, animals. They have no ability to do anything over here. So that can't be the explanation. Right. Even if they're not considered Adam. That's irrelevant. In the context of what it means, that's not a question. But the point is, there are severe consequences. There are severe consequences. Absolute severe consequences. Because they're causing other people to sin. They're causing other people to sin. That's why it's wrong. Right? Same thing as a conservative rabbi doing the same thing. Same exact thing. Right? Now someone asks, okay, so what do? You have to work with people that are reform and conservative. So you deal with them. What do you mean? I don't even understand the question. What do you mean? What do you do with them? You got to work with them. You're around them. Okay. Right? You got to treat them with respect. Right? You're not just going to say you're worth nothing and you're intermarried and this and that. Try and draw them close. That's our obligation. Try and draw them close. Plenty of them out there. Even here in Israel, you got all these secular Jews. So what do you do if you work with secular Jews? Same thing. You try and work in an environment, you don't have that, but it's not all, it doesn't always work that way. Right? So you gotta be careful. Speaking to them and whatever, just what they say and how they act can have a negative effect. Certainly can have a negative effect. Right? So we do whatever we can, try and draw them closer. Try not to learn from their ways. Right? I get this question all the time. Yeah, but I'm around people, Jews, non-Jews. Doesn't really matter. They speak Lashon Hara, they curse, they do other things. You're right. You're right. When you're surrounded in that type of environment, it's hard. You got to stay strong. You absolutely have to be strong. And not be affected by what they say. Person should say, oh, this person cursed, disgusting. Even if you curse every so often or whatever the case is, you look at it as what? I'm trying to grow. I want to be a better person. I don't want to speak Lashon Hara. I don't want to hear Lashon Hara. That means you have a higher awareness. Very good. But when you hear it, it can affect you in a negative way. So again, someone asked, well, if they're not called Adam, what are they? They're human. Adam is a very specific term here. Can a non-Jew be called an Ish? Yes. What is an Ish? A man, right? They can be called Anashim. They can be called people, mankind. They can't be called Adam. Adam's a different term. So if Adam's a different term, it cannot mean the same thing, right? As we explained. Somebody asked, case of Nineveh, Prophet Jonah was unique. Keep in mind what happened. What do we see by what happened with Jonah? God sends him and he says, I want you to go to this place. I'm going to wipe out this place. This place is evil. Warn them, give them an opportunity to repent. If they repent, very good. If they don't repent, I'm going to wipe them. Totally going to wipe them. Okay. Who's the king of Nineveh? Medrash says it's Pharaoh. Pharaoh got demoted. He was the king of the world power and he got knocked off. Ended up in Pago. Ended up in this big city of Nineveh. Very good. He got the message. Finally got the message. After his whole country was decimated. So what happened in Nineveh? They repented. They absolutely repented. Very good. So God saved them. God changed his mind. God wanted to wipe them out. He warned them. He sent Jonah to warn them. Very good. They took the message. They repented. Even their animals. Put sackcloth on their animals. So you see, one thing is there's repentance by a non-Jew. It doesn't work the same way as a Jew. For a Jew can uproot the transgression that they've done, make it into a mitzvah. Non-Jew can only what? Stop from being punished. That's all he can do. I mean, that's also worrisome. For sure worrisome. Right? So in reality, how many nations has God ever sent a prophet to tell them to repent, otherwise it's going to get wiped out? Not too many. This is probably it. Didn't do it to Sodom, didn't do it to other places, wiped them out. That is pretty unique. Right? Definitely unique, but what happened? They repented. So you see, non-Jews have the ability to repent. It doesn't work the same way as a Jew and the mechanics, okay, but they have the ability to repent. Somebody asked, the modern Orthodox Jews accepted by Haredim and Hasidim. It depends on what. If they came to be part of a minyan, to be part of 10 men, so they could pray, yeah, would they be accepted? Yes. Unless there are issues, unless they're not, there's a question on their Jewish status, right? Nobody should look down on anyone. If someone's keeping Torah mitzvahs, very good. This gets to the heart of the question. this gets to the heart of the question here, right? And that is, like we said before, you got, non-Jews rebuking non-Jews, etc. We have this thing about wanting to be right. Everybody wants to be right. So being right, can come at a price. So I would say, okay, modern Orthodox Jews, again, there are different gradations over here. There's some very, very religious, keep Torah at a very high level. And there are others anywhere in between. I was part of that movement many years ago, more than 30 years ago. We call the modern Orthodox religious Zionist movement. And for me, I saw it didn't work. People more interested in the secular world than being religious. Even though they kept Shabbos, they kept other mitzvahs. I'm not going to say across the board. There were serious people who wanted to learn. And serious about Judaism. So, okay, some more, some less. So you can say, okay, so even if someone dresses all black and white, big hat, long coat, this and that, there are also gradations, true. Some keep Torah mitzvahs stronger, some weaker, some learn more, some learn less. There's a totally different outlook, though. A major, major difference in outlook. How they look at the world. Hasidim in the world, after they get married, a year or two they'll learn full time. If that's, and then they go out to work. By modern Orthodox Jews, if you were to ask parents in general, what would you rather your son be? Doctor, lawyer, accountant, rabbi? They'll take the top three. They'll say, what? He wants to learn full time? Or he spent years learning. Right? A doctor or a lawyer is just as good as a rabbi. Just as good as being a rabbinic scholar. I'm not going to say across the board. Unfortunately, many people think that. So what's the difference? The difference is how you look at the outside world. The Hasidim will say you got to deal with the outside world. They try to be more insular, as Orthodox Jews do. You have to be part of the secular world, okay? But you have to know how to use it. You have to know how to not get caught up in things and all that. It's not so easy. For many people in the modern Orthodox world, religious Zionist world, the secular world is something to embrace. It's not something to push aside. There will be people, again, not across the board, there will be people that will say, going to sporting events and watching movies as long as they're clean, more or less, not a problem. I mean, the only thing you could say is, well, maybe it's just a waste of time when they could have been learning, unless it's like immoral or different things, maybe. But see, how do we in the ultra Orthodox world, how do we view success? It's not by money. We view success by how much a person knows. Not even how long they've been learning, full-time, part-time, whatever. It's their knowledge. It's how much Torah knowledge they have. How much they've acquired. How righteous they are. So one of the reasons I left the modern Orthodox world is because I had an opportunity. Since I had money, I could sit and learn as long as I needed to. So, had a rabbi tell me, I can't make this up, said, I don't know what yeshiva you go to as long as you do the army, right? Army is a big issue I don't want to get into. But, as long as, you go to a Zionistic place, I have no issues. So I looked, this rabbi right in the face, and I said, I have an opportunity to learn everything. I don't have any money restrictions. I can sit and learn day in and day out, go tractate after tractate, finish the entire time. Learn everything, as much as I can. So I asked this modern Orthodox rabbi, okay, I have that opportunity now. You're telling me I have to stop learning at some point and do the army. He believes it's a mitzvah to do the army if you're living in the land of Israel. All right? Without getting into the nitty-gritty. First of all, no question if there's a mitzvah to live in Israel anyway. If I have good reasons not to live, a person has a good reason not to live in Israel as a Jew. Right? You're earning better outside of Israel to get married, parnasa, livelihood. Those are 3 good reasons not to come to Israel. Livelihood's a huge thing. You know what the joke is? How do you make $2 million in Israel? You bring $1 million with you. It's hard to live here. You get problems with the Arabs, other things. Okay. Right? But at the end of the day, I said point blank, I said, you're telling me that there's a mitzvah to do the army to stop learning. Sorry, there's a greater mitzvah than learning Torah. Protecting the land of Israel is a greater mitzvah than learning Torah. Now, I would agree that's true if there's a milchemes mitzvah. If there's a mitzvah to go to war, if there's a Sanhedrin, there are prophets that tell you everybody has to go to war. Right? Then everybody has to go to war. Very good. If it's not a milchemes mitzvah, you need a standing army, you need people to learn. You need people, to protect the army. But this quote unquote, this rabbi said, you have an obligation to stop learning and do the army. Now, I'm going to ask you the $2 million question because I just upped the ante twice. And that is there anything more important, any mitzvah at all, more important than learning Torah? Is there any mitzvah at all? No. There's no greater mitzvah than learning Torah. Now, if you have an obligation to do another mitzvah, save a life, different things, okay, sometimes Torah gets pushed aside because you have other obligations, okay? But bottom line, between any mitzvah and the Torah, is there any mitzvah greater than learning Torah? No. There's no greater mitzvah. Now, so this heretical rabbi says, I'm going to call him rabbi, this heretical person says, you got a mitzvah to do the army, and that's more important than sitting and learning. That is a serious problem. That is a serious problem. Right? Right? Someone asked, more important than learning? Yes, I just said that. This is what this quote unquote, this modern Orthodox rabbi said. I don't think he's alone. There are others probably say the same thing. But I'm talking more than 30 years ago. 30 years ago was not the situation we're in with the Arabs now. There were skirmishes, this, that. But it was never like this. Never like this at all. Right? So if that's the case, let me ask you. You want to tell me that's the most important thing? Where there's no milchemes mitzvah? There's no mitzvah to go to war? I'll make a comparison. Rabbi Akiva came to his house for 12 years with all his students. And he's about to knock on the door. And Rabbi Akiva hears his wife talking to someone saying, if my husband would come home right now, I'd send him back to the base medrash. I'd give him another 12 years. That's it. He went back. He didn't even go in and say hello. Commentaries ask, what happened? How can he not go and say hello to his wife and kids? They hadn't seen him for 12 years. What's the answer? Because if he would have stayed there and schmoozed and whatever, and then went back, he wouldn't have been the same Rabbi Akiva. Why? Because 24 doing things, for 24 years, not the same as 12 and 12. If a person, let's say, is studying for 2 hours, they don't really study for 2 hours. Study for half an hour, take a 20-minute break. Study for another half an hour, take a 20-minute break. Is that 2 hours? No. It's not the same. It's totally not the same. So my fear after hearing this and even before hearing this, my fear is, or was, and still would be today, why only learn a little bit of Talmud? You get rabbinic ordination, and then what? Okay, so let's say you pass the exams. Very good. Does that mean you've gone through any tractate at all? No. You've gone through different parts, different things. The entire thing? No. So when I saw what people were doing, for me, I said, I'll never become anything. I'll never, never going to learn. Never going to finish anything. And it's not the point just to finish. It's to understand it properly, go through it properly. Very good. But for somebody to say, and this is the point, for someone to say you take off time from learning for that, doing the army is more important than learning. So some people will say yes. Some people will say yes. That blew my mind. Again, I'm not going to say anyone across the board. If a person's got the ability to learn, you let him learn. So someone else will do the army. Let that person have that potential to reach that potential. Imagine at that point I was learning, after that, when I went to learn in a different place, I was going, for 8-9 years, going to do tractate after tractate every year and a half. Growing spiritually by leaps and bounds. I would have been the same person. You start, you stop 6 months. You're learning 6 months, you're in the army, you go back, you start, you stop. How can you have any continuity? So you got to work hard. You can't get burnt out. I mean, a lot of things are so easy. Not so easy. Right? So, do some people take modern Orthodox Jews to task because of their world outlook? Yes. When they look at the state of Israel? Yes. Right? A lot of them are going to say it's Reishi Smicha Gula Seinu. The beginning of the Gula. Beginning of the redemption. It says the beginning of the redemption. There's a medrash in Tehillim in Psalms that says that, the Messiah comes, who said the Jews are going to be in Israel? Jews could be thrown out in the desert. I remember my Rebbe told me this. I was taking him somewhere. So he had this big smile. I'm like, what are you laughing at? You're also be in the desert. You're also going to be in the desert. I was like, get that smile off your face. In fact, we have Israel now. Now, most people probably say, hard to imagine we'd be thrown out. Right. We could give the land away and they get thrown out. Arafat years ago would have taken the entire West Bank. We wouldn't spit out after that. The left would throw us out straight away. Give everything back if they could. I'm not so sure they would do that today after what happened. But that's an insane way to look at that. That is heresy, period. There are times different things supersede learning Torah. Okay? Depends what it is. But in general, Torah is more important than anything else. There's nothing more important than learning Torah. Doing the army is not even the whole question is even there's a mitzvah to live in the land. But if you want to tell me there's a mitzvah to live in the land, all the more so if you're living in the land, there's a mitzvah to live in the land, I got to do the army also. My question. What's the connection? Well, someone will say it's a direct connection. You live in the land, you got to defend the land. That's if I have a mitzvah to live there. If I don't have a mitzvah to live there. So you can say, but if we weren't there, someone I went to yeshiva with once said, if I wasn't doing the army, Syria would come and invade. I said, okay, it took you about 25 minutes to become a heretic. He's like, what? I keep Torah, I keep Mitzvah, I keep Shabbos. What do you mean? I said, you believe in God? He said, of course. So who's protecting you? Your gun? Or God and people learning Torah protecting you? So it came on. The person was upset with them, and more Orthodox Jews in the army would have made his time much easier. Okay, that's not the issue. This person was saying, if I wasn't there and the army wasn't there, they would come and invade. But you always needed a standing army. No one disagrees. They always had a standing army. So if they always had a standing army, who's really protecting who? If you don't have people sitting and learning, the army's sitting ducks. Sitting ducks. So God's the one in charge. See, this is the mistake. This is the mistake of the IDF. This is the reason my Rebbe said they got hit so hard over here. Because they got a lot of guys, very conceited. Look, best army in the Middle East, this and that. Yeah, God knocked them down. They got caught sleeping. Horrifically. Totally got knocked out. It's not the power of my hands. Right? That's what the Torah says in Deuteronomy. It's not the power of my hands over here that wins wars. They're comparing this to what happened in Yom Kippur, 67 or 73, really. Right? You got the Yom Kippur War, totally caught off guard. Miraculously they won. I don't think there's any question. It's not the power of the army. They got caught sleeping then also. Misread things and different things. But a lot of different things that happened never should have happened during that war either. So, it's not the power of the army. It's not the power of the fact that we have nuclear weapons. It's the fact that God protects the Jewish people, and the greatest protection we have in Israel is people saying Tehillim and learning. That's the greatest protection. Even if we don't see it or whatever, that's the greatest protection. Do we need a standing army? Yes. Do we always need a standing army? Unfortunately, yes. But you also add people learning. That is the protection. Yeah, let me see. 1 second here. Someone asked, can Noahide do tshuva faster, more effectively, surrounded by other Noahides? Oh, good question. Good question. Both the Noahide without Noahide friends can do enough tshuva. A Noahide can do tshuva regardless of who's around them or not. They for sure can do tshuva. Is it better if Noahides live among people that think like themselves? Yes. That's why Jews have to live in a Jewish community for exactly that reason. If you want to be a Jew, you can't live on an island. Your emunah, your belief, your faith in God will be strengthened, and people are doing things that you should be doing. That strengthens you altogether. Because you're around like-minded people. If you're not around like-minded people, it's harder. I'm not going to say it's impossible, it's harder. It's definitely harder. Right? So someone here mentions, yeah, I'm sure it's very good to be surrounded by like-minded people, sure. No question. Even being a Jewish community, even if you don't convert, so what? You're around people that keep or that are going in the path, even if you don't go in that same path, but think the way you do. About Torah mitzvahs, that's huge. That is a huge thing. You live in your own island, you live somewhere in the middle of nowhere. Nobody thinks the same as you. It's debilitating. It's deflating. Should really say deflating. Because you're by yourself. You feel like you're by yourself. Someone asked, Israel was partitioned in the 1940s. Yeah, by the League of Nations. Jordan's partition from other, yeah. You're right. Why isn't this addressed? Well, so I'll answer the question with a question. Why don't you think it's addressed? People have addressed this before. Nobody wants to look at the truth. The Arabs were given an opportunity at the very beginning. The founding of the state. They were given an opportunity to have a two-state partition. Have their own place. They didn't want. They rejected that a whole bunch of times. A whole bunch of times it was rejected. Right? So there are people addressing this. The problem is, as we always say, the lies spread very easily. Very, very easily. So to get the truth out, even if you put it all over the place, people still don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Right? I mentioned, the beginning of this war. I gave Israel a week. A week, show all these images of what happened and this and that. No one bothered them until, Gazan civilians start to die. Once they start to die, if they do their best not to kill them, they're finished. And world opinion is going to be against them. There's still strong world opinion with them, very good. But look what's going on in the world. People protesting calling for genocide. I mean, it's insane. When they declared a Jewish state, what was the first thing the Arabs did? They attacked. They made their beliefs very, very clear. We do not want Jews in the land. Period. They don't want to split it. They don't want any part of it with any Jews living here. They made that clear a number of times. Right? So what's the old adage? If you don't learn history, you're bound to repeat it. These are basic things. You're 100% right. These are basic things people don't know. Or they just ignore. And I think it's ignored, more than they don't know. I think a lot of people don't know this either, right? But they ignore it. It doesn't matter to them. They don't want Jews in the country. So they're going to, you look at all these Muslim countries. How many Jews live there now? Nobody. Nobody. We're the most humane out of any of them. They want to live in peace. No problem. We get work permits. They can work. They can bring in money. They'll take care of their needs. The hospitals, this, that. They'll help them. They're not helping themselves. You got, rogue people in power, stealing all the money, indoctrinating people, lying to them and all this, and they're paying the price. But from the very beginning, he said, no. We don't want any part of, quote unquote, a state next to them. We want them to disappear, i.e. the Jewish people, every single time. They gave an opportunity 3-4 times. Partition plans. They didn't want. Then the whole thing was Clinton. They gave Arab 85%, 90%, or more. Sorry, 95%. He didn't want. Thank God. He wanted the whole thing. But imagine if they gave him the whole thing. That's the heart of the country. It's indefensible. Totally indefensible. So he's willing to give 95%, didn't take it. But what's behind it all? They don't want Jews here, period. They do not want Jews here. That's simple. They made it very clear, open. They're not hiding anything. Just go look at history. They're not hiding anything. But no, people say you stole the land. They gave an opportunity so many times. They ain't anyone to talk to anymore. We're going to talk to. They rejected everything. So either you tell me, and one of a few options, either tell me people have short memories, which I think is true, or you tell me they just don't know anything about Israeli history. That's also true. Or you just tell me they're anti-Semites, they don't want Jews here, period. It's also true. You see what's going on in the world. You have 100,000 people more marching, basically death to the Jews. What happened during the Holocaust? This is everywhere. It's all over. So on the one hand, this could bring, be the beginning of the end. Could be the coming of the Messiah. So good. So let it happen. Hopefully we survive. But, it's kind of like Christianity. People don't care if their historical inaccuracies or not. They just say what they want. Well, it doesn't matter. So you show them all this evidence. Like, wow, that's so interesting. I still hate Jews. That doesn't do anything. They can take out, ads and papers and make videos and, do all these things. It's going to make a difference. Maybe for a few people, it might make a difference. Maybe. The vast majority? No. It's like, oh, it's propaganda. Propaganda. How are you going to fight City Hall? That's what you have to do. You have to get the truth out. But see, the Arabs are very good at distorting things. That's their job. That's what they do. They lie. So they've got this whole thing out there, and they get a lot of power. And everybody sucks it up. Look how much money they gave to universities. So you see what's going on in universities. People don't want the truth. They're not interested. And even if you would tell them, they're going to guarantee, most are going to say, it doesn't matter. We want Jews out. That's not true. Right? Wasted argument. They need to hear it. They for sure need to hear it, but not going to be so interested. Guaranteed. Any other questions? Well, I didn't get to my other questions, so deal with it on Thursday. But any other questions? All right, I'm going to stop here. I do this every Tuesday and Thursday, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, 5 o'clock Israel Time. Anyone has any questions, feel free. You can find me on Facebook at Rabbi Chaim Coffman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com. Beyond Orthodox Conversion Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Q&As, Ethics for Our Fathers, Torah Portion of the Week, Book of Leviticus, controversial issues. You want to send me an email, rabbichaimcoffman@gmail.com, RBBICHAIMCOFFMAN @gmail.com, whichever good beginning of the day, middle of the day, and